Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our first Community Services Subcommittee meeting in quite some time. So it is good to finally be able to have this dialogue again in this format. It is something that I've been looking forward to having again. So good afternoon, and we'll get ourselves started. So joining me today on the subcommittee meeting is Councillor Seven is joining us by telephone. I've got Councillor Burback, Clifford, and Henderson. I also have staff present being our Director of Community Services, David St. Louis. I have our Manager of Recreation, Brad Herndon. I also have our staff, Tatiana Defoe, Jody Akins, and Daniel Clayton. So with that being said, I'll call the meeting to order. Item number 2, disclosure of pecuniary interest. Seeing none. Item number 3 is delegations, for which we have none scheduled. Item 4 is report of the Director of Community Services, with item 4.1 being the 2021 sanctioned pickleball tournament and 2022 Pickleball Ontario Championship. And we have a staff recommendation that the presentation by Kevin Daniels and Dave Ashkins regarding hosting a sanctioned pickleball tournament in 2021 and 2022 Pickleball Ontario Championship be heard. Moved by Councillor Henderson, seconded by Councillor Burback. All in favor?
Aye.
And that is carried. Do we have you guys on the line? Good afternoon. Hello? Dave, if you want to unmute yourself. There we go. Dave, can you hear us now?
Yeah, we can.
Okay,
so this
perfect.
Is Sorry. This is Kevin Daniels. You have Dave Ashkenazi, Karen Hill, and Mike Hansford. And if you guys are ready, we'll dig right in.
The floor is yours.
Okay. So this is our pickleball tournament. Proposal in a PowerPoint. On page 2 is basically the agenda that we're going to be going through. Page 3 is our mission statement. And the gist of the mission statement is to promote pickleball in Stratford in a very friendly and positive environment for all players in all ages, recreational and competitive. Moving on to page 4 of the PowerPoint presentation. This is for you guys just to read at your leisure. It's a history of pickleball, how it started back in '65. And yeah, it's just interesting how it started. There's on page 5. We also have the overview of pickleball in the Stratford area, which started roughly 10 years ago, brought back from Florida by snowbirds. Our slide, page 6. These are associations for different countries. As you can see, pickleball is a very big thing around the world with a lot of international countries. Pickleball is moving forward to actually be in the Olympic Games at one point. Page 7. This is, so the 4 of us here have discussed that it would be nice to have a tournament in Stratford. Presently we have locations to play, recreational and competitive play. pickleball in Stratford is a thriving community. And the next thing we can do is a tournament. The tournament for 2021 we're proposing would be roughly 144 participants. We would need a facility with 12 courts that we could handle the 72 teams, and that would be a 2-day tournament. Then in 2022, we're looking to do the provincial pickleball tournament. This brings players from all over Ontario to Stratford. Historically, it's 300 to 350 participants. We would probably need the 16 courts, the Agriplex, and possibly some other courts as well. That's for the 2022 tournament that we have shown some interest to Pickleball Ontario for hosting. On page 8, so what we're asking from the city is to sponsor the pickleball for next year, to set up an account where the city would pay for the registration, pay for the medals, pay for the advertising, the sundries, and having said that, the tournament should generate around the $4,000 revenue. Any monies left over would go back to the city. And then we're also asking the city if they could provide us with a venue for the 2 days that would accommodate the 12 courts we would require. Is there any questions at this point?
Councillor Clifford.
I have a couple questions. Do the 12 courts all have to be in the same place, or can they be spread out around the city for this one in?
No, for this tournament that's this small and with our volunteer requirements, we need it to be in one location. Yeah,
my other question is, when you add up the cost, it is substantial, and obviously 2021 is going to be we've set a council. Anything that's coming up that we haven't decided on would be brand new. So I think it would have to be referred to 2021 budget. But my other question is, I don't see anywhere where we have a corporate sponsorship. I mean, if you're going to have something like this in and you get people coming in, are you looking at other sources of income other than the city of Stratford?
So it's Dave Ashkenaze here. That is in the plans. That would be looking at a corporate sponsor. We'd also be looking at running some smaller tournaments in town to offset the costs. We talked about approaching some service clubs in town and also restaurants. So there'll be part of the committee here will be responsible for going out to the community and to try to get some funds to offset the costs. And we realize if we're going to hold the provincials in 2022 that we have to have a corporate sponsor, and that'll be part of our task of our organization to do that.
Councillor Burback.
Thank you. Yeah, I didn't have really a question as much as a general comment. I do think that it's a great idea, seeing as we would like to encourage some sports tourism to come to Stratford, and this is another way that we can definitely encourage people from all over the province to come to Stratford. I'm wondering or maybe this is a question, but not for the presenters, but maybe for staff, is this something that perhaps it's a community grant that they would be looking for that would perhaps give them some funding, and then they could look for other funding outside of that, besides being able to book the whatever facility they were hoping to use? I'm not sure who can answer that question.
It's Dave. I believe some of their requests could fall under a community grant, so i.e. waiving of the fees for a facility.
So further on the tournament.
Councillor Burback?
Yeah, sorry to interrupt, Dave. So I did have a question about what you had in mind as far as the location for the tournament. What were you thinking?
So further to the tournament, we realize right now SLAW has the facility until the end of April. I'm not sure when the floor comes out at the Agriplex, if it's available in the month of April or probably of May, or potentially in September. So those would be kind of the 2 months we'd be looking at to host the tournament next year in 2021 for the 12 courts. So it would be May or September, if that would work with the city. The other thought we had about if we had the provincials, so a little education on pickleball is that there's 3.0, 3.5, 4s, 4.5s, and 5s, and 4.5s are the best. And we want to attract those individuals to come to our community. And we were talking about if we could have the 3s and 3.5s at the Agriplex, and then we could have the 4s and 4.5s at one of the rinks, potentially, hopefully, RBC, because I understand the RBC only runs one rink in the summertime, and one rink is idle, and that we could use the concrete floors in the second rink. And so it's just a walking distance between the two facilities, but basically on the same property. So that's the kind of stuff we'd like to talk about with the city, if they would, work with us in that area. I think that would work best if we could have, if we had the provincials in 2022 at the Agriplex and also at the RBC. The recent provincials that were held last year in Kingston were held at arenas, and they just taped lines on the concrete floors, and that's something that we would do. We'd tape lines down, and then we'd also be asking if we could have some sort of agreement to use the SLAW nets.
Thank you. Any other questions from the subcommittee? Councillor Clifford.
Yeah, I don't know where I read this, but I thought you were asking, the group was asking to have some changes at some outdoor courts. Is that still included in this, or is that not not part of this now? I may have that wrong, but I read it somewhere in the report. You wanted something taken off one court and one court moved to another. Is that part of this or not now?
It's the last page on our proposal, and we were doing it. Well, if you want, we can talk about that now, or we can talk about that separately once we finished about the two tournaments. It's up to you guys.
Councillor Clifford, are you okay if we just hold one conversation, then we'll go to the renovations that they're going to talk about later? Is that okay with you?
No, absolutely. I just wanted clarification, Mr.
Okay.
Chair.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, proceed, Dave.
Yeah, so going back to the two tournaments, so we'd like to host one in 2021 with the potentially with at the Agriplex with the wooden floors and only at the Agriplex, and then in 2022 we'd be looking at, because the number is that much greater, and to have utilize the Agriplex and then also utilize the RBC, the one empty rink, and use both those facilities.
Councillor Clifford.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, in 2021 with this pandemic still on, like, can you have it inside with, I just like some clarification if we don't have a inoculation by then, either in the spring or in the fall. What are the ramifications with the pandemic?
Well, I can tell you locally what's going on. So London Pickleball Club is presently at the Dome at the University grounds in London, and they have 4 courts there, and they're using that as a tennis and a pickleball facility, and it's up and running right now. Totally Tennis, which is located in Lambeth, outside of London, they have also indoor tennis and pickleball, and it's up and running right now. Their requirements their requirements are wear a mask to the facility, and mask is worn when you're not playing. When you are on the court, you have the option of wearing a mask or not wearing a mask. There is a tournament in London that was postponed from this past spring. That's going to be in November of this year at Totally Tennis. I don't know what the numbers are, but there's usually well over 100, some odd number, over 200 numbers. Yeah, 200 participants in that type thing. RIM is another place where they've had the provincials before a couple of years ago in 18, and they haven't opened the doors yet, but we are hearing that they are in the midst of coming up with some sort of regulations to open up their facility for pickleball and other events as well. But and then there's a private club that just opened up at Northfield in Kitchener-Waterloo on Northfield Drive. It used to be Northfield Rackets. It's now called Gravestone, and they just opened up their membership, and it's going to be it's all being renovated. 6 brand new pickleball courts, tennis courts, squash courts, etc. So these facilities are open, and people are playing indoors. And you have your choice of wearing a mask or not wearing a mask while playing the event. So in answer to your question, I don't know what 2021 summer is going to look like, but right now, presently, there are facilities that are honoring pickleball.
Councillor Henderson.
This is a question through you for Dave. I'm just curious. I know that the bingo's on, and I understand they were slowly introducing the slaw groups to come up to the egg. Has the actual sports section opened up yet? Like, is anybody playing basketball, tennis, or whatever up there?
You can ask Mr. Herndon on that. I know that they've sent an email out to memberships, and I think
I meant David St. Louis, but I guess you're right, sorry. Brad. Brad would be on the phone too. Sorry, Dave.
Okay, I can answer the first part of the question is, are these facilities open? So they, currently in today's world, you're allowed 50 people in a certain area. So the pickleball area would be allowed 50, the bingo area would be allowed 50. There are some certain protocols that you need to follow in terms of cross-contamination, in terms of cohorts. So we would have to do some more research on how an actual tournament would run with more than 50 people. At that point, I don't know the answer to the question. And I think Brad can answer the second part of it today.
Good afternoon. It's Brad Herndon here. Just wanted to say congratulations to Dave and his group for getting this far with the information and the planning. I know these sort of ideas and visions aren't always easy to craft at the beginning stages. So looking forward to supporting you in this in whatever way we can. I think at this point, there are so many questions related to, what would be the health regulation at the time of 2021, 2022 in our local community, use of equipment from another third party, availability of the facility. These are all operational matters that it would be great to meet with the group to talk about what that looks like in 2021 and 2022 and come up with a vision and proposal of how this could work. So just in response to what's going on today, we are slowly returning some sport groups to the Agriplex under today's protocols, both local health related and city related. So I think it's best maybe that the conversation be taken back to staff, and we can have those discussions with the group and come back to subcommittee and council with some information.
Councillor Clifford.
Yeah, I was going to ask our director, would we have to have enhanced air quality? Like he talked about cross-contamination and whatnot. Have we, like even right now, have we updated our air filtration or air from outside? Is anything, and if we did have a tournament, would that be part of the scenario?
So I don't know the answer to that question. Have we increased our air quality or air turnover? No, we have not. Does our facility have that capability? I would have to check. But in terms of what the protocols are today, and who knows what 2021 looks like, it is a maximum of 50 people in that facility at one time.
Councillor Henderson.
Yes, and today we just had an email from the province saying that Toronto, Peel, and Ottawa have now been cut back to 10 in a building and 25 outside. It's so hard to predict what's going to happen next year. And knowing that, and having said that, we know that when you're doing tournaments, you need lots of advance notice. So it's really going to be hard to make a decision on this until next year, actually. See how things are going. I mean, you can sort of do the planning thing, and maybe it'll have to be 2022, 2023, or maybe it'll have to be 2023, 2024 until they get a vaccine and things settle down. You know, right now we're fortunate, touch wood. Perth Huron has low numbers, so we can still stay at stage 3, but it's hard to say what's going to happen.
Thank you. So we've Dave, are you finished the presentation in regards to the tournament and wish to proceed with the Shakespeare Street facility?
Yeah, just give me 2 seconds here. And I agree with Councillor Henderson, and we know that as a group we're willing to put the energy into it to work some sort of agreement out with the city. We know with COVID, unless there's a vaccine, we probably won't be going ahead, or we will. It'll be less numbers type thing. So what's happening behind the scenes is that the province has asked for tenders for the 2022 provincial tournament. And so their meeting is tonight. And there's obviously not just ourselves, but other communities have put in to request to run the tournament in 2022. So we're just starting the process here, preliminary process, to see if the city is willing we can come together and collaborate this tournament together. And then and hopefully it does go ahead in 2022. But there's a lot of preparation work that we have to do prior to, and make sure that if we do get some paperwork from the province that we say, yes, the city is willing to help us out in this process of running a tournament, they will, there are venues in Stratford that we can use.
Okay, thank you.
And if you want me to speak about Shakespeare, I can do that as well.
Yes, if you could continue with the presentation.
Okay, as you know, that there's a newer Shakespeare facility on Shakespeare Street. Presently, there's 4 pickleball courts and 1 tennis court. I'm just going to read down through the points here. The facility is 120 feet square. 60 feet of that houses 4 pickleball courts. The other 60 feet is the 1 tennis court. And presently there's a plastic surface that's on top of the on top of the asphalt surface that was brand new 3 years ago or 4 years ago. There's a lot of money put into drainage. The fencing is all brand new. what we've seen in our observations this past summer as a group, we've seen that in talking to the individuals that play there, that there are concerns about the tiles, that they're shifting, when there's some moisture on the tiles or slippage, when you're playing the game and the plastic ball that you use as a wiffle ball, you strike the ball with your paddle, comes down and makes contact with the surface. It skids on the surface, so it's not giving you a true bounce. So there are safety concerns. I have brought people in from out of town that have played on those courts there, and they will not go back and play on those courts because of the concerns I just expressed to you as well. And on the outer edge lip of the facility, the plastic is kind of, it can break away type thing, so there's concerns about some injuries. So to enhance the program or looking at the facility, that we know or we think that the asphalt underneath is pristine, that we could remove the plastic from that facility, make that a permanent pickleball facility, designate as the pickleball facility, and take the tennis court out, put in 4 additional pickleball courts. So you'd have 8 in total. The measurements are there to handle 8 courts in there. Paint the lines. You can paint the lines, just the pickleball court lines. You don't have to get too fancy with greens and blues colors. Just paint the lines on there with a white, blue, or whatever color you want to paint the line. And then in between the 4 courts, separating the courts, run a fence in between, a 4-foot-high fence. And it's a security fence, so people don't, when they're moving back from one court to the other court, they're not going to bump into each other, and the ball isn't going in from court to court. And that surface could be lifted and then utilized somewhere else at another facility in Stratford. But we're also looking, if we have an 8-court pickleball facility on Shakespeare Street, we can do outside tournaments, which are very popular in southwestern Ontario. St. Thomas has them. Other communities have them as well. St. Thomas usually tries to have at least, well, they before COVID had at least one or 2 a month that were bringing people into the community, tourism. And so the washroom facilities are over at the new bus depot, which is less than a 5-minute walk, next to the south side of the bus depot. If you're looking at it on the left-hand side, there's a 50, 60, or 70 car parking lot for cars there. We would host a tournament. We would look for sponsorship. The biggest thing is that the committee isn't looking to make any money. Whatever monies we make, we want to give back to the city. And we want that monies to be then hopefully put back into maintaining the pickleball facility. So whether we run a tournament, if they go ahead with the 8-court facility on Shakespeare Street, if it's inside or if it's at the Agriplex / the RBC, whatever monies we make goes back to the city. Basically, what we've been doing here in the last 2 or 3 weeks is talking about how to enhance the economy, the tourist side of things for Stratford, for our restaurants, for our bars, for our B&Bs, and for our hotels. That's basically the bottom line here, is trying to bring some money into our community. So the numbers just came out this past weekend from Pickleball Canada, and there's over 3 million, I was pretty shocked at this, 3 million people playing pickleball in Canada right now. And we know that it's on an upswing right now. It's a cheap, inexpensive sport. Paddle costs you $100, $150, pair of running shoes, sunscreen, and a hat, and you're ready to play. So we also, the group, there's many of us, would like to, put some clinics in, bring in new adults, younger people, because the existing facilities we have right now are over 55. There's a facility over on Romeo Street. You guys know about that. We won't get into that. But we want to bring in the younger generation into the pickleball world. And with the 8 courts, I think that's we can do that.
Thank you, Dave, for your presentations. And
You're welcome.
I would say, based on your presentation, we're looking at two separate things here. Obviously, we're looking at the tournaments, and then we're looking at the courts. I would say that I would support it in principle, but both of these, and we heard from our manager of recreation, saying that it's something that would need more consultation between both yourselves as the pickleball committee and with staff. And I would welcome staff's giving them the opportunity to consult with you directly, and then perhaps come back to the committee with cost analysis of your options for your tournaments as well as for the court conditions.
Excellent. Any questions from councillors or anybody?
Councillor Clifford.
So, Mr. Chair, are you asking for a referral motion from both items back to staff?
I am.
I will make a referral motion for the tournaments and the Shakespeare, and so we can get some cost and the possibilities that can happen. I'll make that motion that we refer it back to staff.
Thank you, Councillor Clifford. Do I have a second? I guess I don't need a seconder. Is there any discussion? Councillor Henderson.
Well, I'm a little confused. I thought we just did the tennis courts like last year or something. Weren't they resurfaced and a new fence, and or is it just the pickleball side of it that's having the problem with the tiles lifting and stuff?
Dave or Brad, could you comment on the conditions of or when those when that facility was?
It's Dave. I believe it was about 2 years ago. I mean, I'm not a pickleball player, but it has some merit that if there is pockets or air pockets under the tile, that a wiffle ball wouldn't bounce very well. As for a tennis ball that's a lot heavier, I'm not sure that would be the case. Following up on Dave's idea, I believe that if we looked at Milton and moving those tiles over, the tennis tiles, and refurbishing the Milton courts, we could get the best of both worlds. We could have 8 pickleball courts with a relatively low cost, although refurbishing Milton would be at a higher cost. And that's something that we need to look into.
So I think with the motion, Bonnie, we would give staff the opportunity to take a look at those facilities and how we could potentially offer solutions to that. If there's no further comments or questions, I'll call it. All in favor of the motion?
Yes.
And that's carried. Thank you. So going forward, we'll ask that staff connect with the Pickleball Association and provide council with feedback. Thank you, Dave, for your time, and we'll look forward to having you connect with our staff. Item 5 is project updates, and I'll turn it over to the director.
I don't have much more to add other than what's in the report. During these troubled times, we've been doing our best to keep capital projects moving. You can see by underneath transit where it looks at the weekly ridership, as you see it slowly increase, and that's a good thing. Although I can update you a little bit on school specials that have just started this week, so it's just this week. The participation has been low. We are uncertain whether it'll increase drastically or not. Only time will tell. And that's all I have more to add.
Great, thank you. Councillor Clifford.
Yeah, I was just going to ask our director, ever since we've, like they're paying for transit, has that changed the ridership, or is it about the same as it was when there was no charge for bus rides.
So difficult to compare because when it was free, there was more fear about riding transit, so it was very low. We are now seeing, now that it is paying to ride transit, we're still seeing an uptick in ridership. So let's hope that that continues.
Councillor Henderson.
I don't know if it's appropriate to ask here or not. The Interlink bus, do you know where Stratford is at it? I saw Perth County did a notice out, and whether this is more at a council meeting or here, that I can ask that question.
I believe you're going to be updated at your next council meeting.
Do you know anything about that?
Bonnie, Dave just said you'll get updated at the next council meeting. Okay. I do have new business that I'd like to bring up. Oh, sorry, Councillor Burback. Sorry.
Sorry, I also have a new business item, just to let you know.
Okay, you go ahead first.
Okay, thank you. So the ATAC committee met last evening, the advisory committee, and we do have some money in our budget set aside for bike racks, bike parking. And one of the places that we identified that we would really like to have bike parking is at either playgrounds or in parks in the city where there doesn't exist any. So I just wanted to let Community Services know that we've budgeted $2,000 towards putting in bike racks. So hopefully staff will be able to work together with you all to figure out exactly where those are needed. And maybe they are not installed, but we need to purchase them in 2020 because it's part of our 2020 budget. So just thought I'd give staff a heads up about that.
That's great. Thank you, Councillor Burback. So Dave, I'm sure you can forward that off to find the location for those bike racks and have them purchased.
Absolutely, that's good news. We always need bike racks.
Great.
I think it's a great idea instead of bikes just laying all over the grass and they're like a trip hazard then, right? So.
Okay, thank you. So the item that I would like to bring up is in conversation with an educator in our community, we were discussing the fact that the new world of online learning and the fact that many students, that being those that are now off to post-secondary, are doing their education mostly at home online. And he shared with me an article that was from out in British Columbia where a community was looking for spaces within their community, and one of the options were churches or community halls, and making it available for students so that they could go have a safe location that was quiet, that had access to internet. And so I wanted to bring it up to this subcommittee to see if there would be a way in which Stratford could do something similar, where we could offer a location, as an example, our recreation complex, where we could open it up. It's a safe environment. It's where they could socially distance, but yet have a space where they could study, a place where they could have access to internet, and that they could just do their online studies in a location that perhaps is more conducive for learning than maybe where they're at right now. So I just wanted to bring that up and see if there's a will of the subcommittee to pass this on to staff to see if there is a location, and logistically if this is something that we could offer to our students of Stratford. Councillor Burback?
I think that's an excellent idea. So I'd be willing to make a motion to ask staff to look into how we could do that, or how we could provide facilities for, I mean, post-secondary, but also perhaps secondary students. There are a lot that have decided to do full-time online learning. And so it would be a great, because they can't go to the library right now. Yeah. And it would be probably really good. I mean, it may have to be something where we would have slots and they would book times and so on so that we could keep track. And you know, may not be, we may not need a huge space, but I do think that that's a really excellent idea.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Burback. Councillor Clifford.
Yeah, I've got a few questions. Like, would we have to have like chairs and tables and what kind of hours, and like how large a facility or large of area? How much area are you contemplating?
And for me, I would like to just throw it back to staff to see, A, is this something that is logistically possible? And then B, what resources could we make available? So is it just simply a table and a chair? And then obviously the ability to ensure that safe distancing within the defined space, wherever that space might be. I just threw out the rec complex as a potential location for, I mean, if one of the halls could be made available, hand sanitized, socially distanced, in my opinion, it wouldn't take much to make that happen, but I would look for staff to provide their insight into whether that's feasible or possible.
Can I make a comment through the chair?
Yes, please, Councillor Sept.
Yeah, thank you. I was just wondering if we could include as part of this a list of if there's already existing sort of places that would be an option for them or something similar that already exists in the community. I know that, I mean, by the time this comes back, the library, the status may change there. They may have something different going on, but just so we have an idea of what's already existing in the community so we don't sort of create something that's already out there.
Yep, I think we could ask staff to provide the locations of already existing facilities.
Sure, thank you.
Councillor Burback.
Just to speak from some personal experience, with coffee shops and everything else being closed, when my daughter came back home, she was just finishing her first year of university, and our internet was cut off. So a neighbor down the street was doing renovation, and they actually literally cut through our cable line, and she had an assignment which she had to submit, and this happened at 11 o'clock at night. It was due at midnight. So at least at the time in April, there were no facilities to go to. Luckily, she had grandparents we could stand on their porch outside, so she could log onto their Wi-Fi and submit her assignment. But if we didn't have that, and I think even for people finishing assignments and so on, there is no alternative. So if something happens to your internet, you're in big trouble. Like, there's no coffee shop, there's no library. There, you know, even private commercial spaces, you know, you can't go and sit in Tim's for long periods of time anymore. So I really do think that providing some public space would be really important.
Agreed. Yeah. Okay. If there's no further comments or questions, I'll call the motion. All in favor?
Yep. Yes.
And that is carried. Thank you, everyone. So if there's no further new business, our next subcommittee meeting is scheduled for October 15th. And I'd call a motion to adjourn. Councillor Burback, all in favor?
Yes.
Carried. Thank you, everybody, and have a great afternoon.
All right. Thank you.